Well, this is the Bose Seal-Fast Indianapolis Roadster, built in 1959 by Quint Epperly for Bose Seal-Fast for George Bignotti and Bob Bose. This car participated in the only IndyCar race at the Daytona track in 1959, and it qualified at 177 miles an hour, which was really fast for the day. Unfortunately, the car crashed on the last lap of the race and fatally injured a guy, and it was repaired in time for the 1959 Indy 500, and the car was driven by Johnny Boyd and finished in 6th place. And of all the Indy cars I've restored, this has been the easiest one, because even though it'd been updated a little bit for Indianapolis, it was as last run, so it's restored as you see it. And I enjoy bringing it here to the hot rod deal, and I love driving it, because we drove it at Indianapolis this year, and we're going to drive it at Milwaukee here in about a month at a car meet in Milwaukee. This car has a very pleasing body style, and the paint job just complements that. And I had always fallen in love with this car, but nobody knew where it was. And as it turned out, when the car was retired from Indianapolis, got sold to a collector in Detroit, and he put it in his basement of his condo, and it stayed there till he died in 2005. And a year or so after that, I was finally able to obtain the car and restore it to its 1959 configuration, and to my eye, it's one of the prettiest Indianapolis Roadsters ever built.
This car differs in the way that the Bernie Cito's car was set up. That was a dirt car, this is an asphalt car. What differs as far as this one's concerned?
Well, for one thing, it's got an Offenhauser engine in it. The main difference is that the engine and the drive line are offset to one side, in this case to the driver's left, and the driver sits down beside the drive shaft and the transmission rather than sitting on top of it, and it lets the profile of the car and the position of the driver be much lower, which was done to help the aerodynamics of the car and to make the center of gravity lower for much better handling. It's 255 cubic inches and about 400 horsepower. Okay. 4-cylinder engine. In 1960 or 61, a new engine was $10,000 or $11,000, which was a tremendous price at the time. The car burns methanol, which is still used in the alcohol dragsters and that sort of stuff, exactly the same fuel. And the car held about 60 gallons of methanol. It didn't carry a whole lot more because the distance you could go between stops was determined by tire wear. So there was no sense in carrying huge amounts of alcohol when you had to stop because of the tires being wore out. So the fuel tank capacity is somewhat roughly matched to the life of the tires, which was about 150 miles. But Mobil Oil Company was a major fuel supplier, and those flying horses were emblematic of Mobil Oil Company. That was their emblem, was the flying red horse.
Now you're from the Nashville area, Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
And you happen to know one of my personal friends that happens to work where I do at Holley Performance, Mr. Ed Woodard. And we were talking about Ed Woodard a little bit ago. Can you tell me a little bit how he may have been responsible for you getting into the automobiles as you have?
Well, he was a big help in the late 50s and early 60s. Ed put on what for the time were pretty cool car shows in Nashville, sometimes in conjunction with the state fair, sometimes not. But he would gather up what there was in the way of show-worthy cars from the time in the Nashville area And then he would supplement that with a bunch of big time show cars, stuff featured in Hot Rod magazine, and other well-known cars. And I used to go down there and spend hours in that place, wherever he held it, walking around and looking at all this stuff that's I'd only seen in magazines and drooling all over it. So Ed and his car shows had an impact on my interest in cars. And there were a couple of other people that kind of tolerated a 13 or 14-year-old kid hanging around and looking at stuff. A lot of people kind of helped foster my interest in all this stuff.
And so I find that interesting that today you kind of do the same thing here at the Hot Rod Reunion. Every year you bring a very unique car like the Bose Special here, or the Bose Silfast Special, and kind of foster that interest and share that with the younger generations.
Well, and I hope so. I'm glad to bring it, and I like for people to see this stuff, and that way these cars and their builders and their drivers don't get just totally forgotten about.